The UFC is fighting a war on two fronts for global conquest. One is a flashy, high-stakes political game meant to plant the UFC flag on the most powerful lawn in the world. The other is a quieter, much messier story of a fighter trying to find his way in a foreign land. Down in Washington, D.C., Dana White is trying to pull off what he's calling the Sphere on steroids. A live UFC pay-per-view broadcast from the grounds of the White House. It's a move that just screams political power, a statement that the UFC has finally made it to the inner circle of American influence. But thousands of miles away, a totally different kind of influence is playing out. Bryce Mitchell, one of the UFC's most love-him-or-hate-him fighters, has been making his own headlines in the heart of Arabia. His journey isn't about shaking hands with presidents. It's about navigating the cultural minefield of a region the UFC is pouring millions into. This is the story of the UFC's two-pronged attack. One is a huge, unprecedented power play. The other is a boots-on-the-ground mission to win over hearts and minds. But which one really shows us the future of the sport? And what do these two completely different strategies tell us about the empire Dana White is building? It honestly sounds like something straight out of a movie. The plan, at least as it's been pitched, is for the UFC to build an octagon on the south lawn of the White House on July 4, 2026, to celebrate America's 250th anniversary. Now, this isn't a done deal just yet. While the idea was announced by former President Donald Trump himself, and Dana White has confirmed they are actively planning it, the event is still in the proposal stage and hasn't been officially finalized by the UFC. Dana White, who has never been known for being subtle, promised an event that would make their show at the Las Vegas Sphere look small. He painted a picture of the White House as the backdrop on one side and the Washington Monument on the other. It's a visual tailor-made for maximum impact, an attempt to cement the UFC not just as a sport, but as a piece of American culture itself. You can imagine the logistical nightmare. Security would be run by the Secret Service. There would be no public tickets sold. It'd be an invite-only event for a crowd that Trump estimated at 20,000 to 25,000 guests, with every single one needing a background check. That exclusivity is part of the mystique. It turns a fight night into a historic gathering of the elite, a coronation for a brand that clawed its way from smoky back rooms to the front door of the most powerful address on earth. The whole idea reportedly got started when President Trump suggested it to White. From there, Trump apparently told his daughter Ivanka to get the ball rolling with Dana's team to figure out how it could work. White's team has already scouted the location at the White House and is working on the final pitch. And the fights, Dana has called it the chance to build the baddest card of all time. Just the whisper of this event sent shockwaves through the roster. Conor McGregor, the sport's biggest star, immediately tweeted, "I would be honored, count me in." Even more surprising, there's heavy speculation about Jon Jones making a comeback. While he has been inactive with an injury, not retired, White has openly talked about a dream main event. A heavyweight title unification fight between the legend, Jon Jones, and the champ, Tom Aspinall. It's important to note, however, that despite the talk, there's been no official confirmation that Jones has re-entered the USADA testing pool, which would be required for him to fight. Of course, Dana is also a realist. He knows a year is an eternity in the fight business and anything can happen. But the goal is clear. Stack this card with the biggest names you can find and create a pay-per-view that breaks out of the MMA bubble and grabs the world's attention. This isn't just a fight night. It's a power play, carefully designed to broadcast the UFC's influence from the heart of the American empire. While those monumental plans are being drawn up for DC, a completely different story has been playing out in Arabia, with Bryce Mitchell as an unlikely character. Thug Nasty has built his entire career on being himself, for better or worse. He's the guy in the camo shorts with the thick Arkansas drawl, known for his controversial and sometimes conspiratorial public comments. In a lot of ways, he's the exact opposite of the polished, corporate image the UFC often wants to project. And yet, it's Bryce Mitchell who gives us a glimpse into another side of the UFC's expansion. The push into the Middle East, especially Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi, is a huge piece of their global strategy, backed by massive financial investments from the region. This is where the story gets a little complicated. Mitchell's time in Arabia wasn't some polished PR tour. Instead, it was marked by moments of real and frankly awkward cultural friction. In a story he told that went viral, Mitchell described being in a locker room in Abu Dhabi where he, fresh out of the shower, found himself completely naked in a room with 6 Muslim men. He said he quickly realized his nudity was causing serious offense, explaining, "I've never put on my blue jeans and boots quicker in my life." It was a moment of pure cultural collision, a world away from the smooth diplomacy of a White House event. This isn't the kind of heartwarming story a PR firm writes. Mitchell has also been an outspoken critic within the sport, sometimes making controversial claims about fights being rigged. These are not the words of a company man. Still, his presence there means something. While Dana White is working the corridors of power, fighters like Mitchell are on the ground, interacting, and sometimes clashing, with the very cultures the UFC is trying to win over. This is the messy, unfiltered reality of global expansion. It isn't always smooth and it isn't always pretty, but it's real. The story of Bryce Mitchell in Arabia shows the UFC's other strategy, its soft power. The organization's influence isn't just built with big events and political favors. It's also built on the personalities of its fighters, athletes who connect with different people for different reasons. Mitchell, with his unfiltered personality, has a raw, populist appeal that's the total opposite of the calculated grandeur of the White House event. His story, with all its controversy and cultural fumbles, is a reminder that the UFC's global footprint is being stamped not just by Dana White, but by the fighters themselves, one awkward locker room encounter at a time. These two stories, White's power moves and Mitchell's cultural bumps, are really two sides of the same coin. Before we break down what this all means for the future of the UFC, if you're enjoying this look into the fight game's inner workings, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss what's next. So what are we supposed to make of these two things happening at once? On one hand, you have the ultimate top-down strategy. A UFC event at the White House is a show of force. It's the payoff of a decades-long friendship between Dana White and Donald Trump. A relationship that has helped lift the UFC from a fringe spectacle to a sport that has a seat at the highest political table. That event sends a message to the world, to sponsors, and to other promotions that the UFC isn't just mainstream. It's woven into the fabric of the establishment. It's an undeniable display of influence. On the other hand, Bryce Mitchell's story in Arabia shows a bottom-up approach, a kind of soft power. This influence isn't planned in a boardroom. It's messy, unpredictable, and relies entirely on the personality of a single fighter. Mitchell's popularity and his controversy forge a different kind of bond with fans. It's a grassroots connection that can't be faked, even if the UFC benefits from it. While the company pours money into its Middle East expansion, its success there really hinges on whether the fighters themselves can actually connect with the local audience. But here's the thing, these two strategies aren't separate. They actually feed each other. The legitimacy that comes from an event at the White House makes the whole UFC brand more valuable. That, in turn, lifts up every fighter on the roster, including Bryce Mitchell, and gives them a bigger stage to build their own brands. And it works the other way too. The unique and wild personalities of fighters like Mitchell are what make the UFC so compelling and marketable all over the world in the first place. If you don't have fighters who capture the public's imagination, whether with their skill, their charisma, or their controversy, you don't have a product worth taking to the White House. The UFC needs its rebels and outcasts just as much as it needs its polished champions. It needs the raw authenticity of a Bryce Mitchell to balance the perfectly planned spectacle of a White House gala. This dual approach shows just how sophisticated the UFC's global strategy has become. It's a machine working on multiple levels at once. It uses high-level political connections to open doors and book impossible venues, while at the same time relying on the star power of its diverse roster of fighters to walk through those doors and win over new markets. One is about breaking into the institutions of power, the other is about conquering the culture. So we're left with this fascinating contrast. In Washington, Dana White is setting the stage for the UFC's ultimate power move, a show of patriotism and political muscle meant to prove the organization has reached the top of American influence. Across the globe, the unpredictable journey of fighters like Bryce Mitchell shows a different, more grassroots kind of influence, one built on personality and real human interaction. The White House event would be a massive landmark, a symbol of how far the sport has come. It would be the peak of Dana White's relentless mission to legitimize and grow his empire. But the future of that empire might just depend as much on its ability to connect with different cultures on a human level. A mission carried out by its fighters every time they step foot in a new country. This brings us to the ultimate question. As the UFC continues its march across the globe, which of these two approaches will matter more in the long run? Is the future of the UFC's influence found in the halls of power, shaking hands with presidents? Or is it found in the gyms and locker rooms of faraway lands, winning over one fan, one fighter, and one cultural connection at a time? Which form of influence do you think is more powerful for the UFC's future? A seat at the political table, or winning the hearts and minds of new fans abroad? Let me know what you think in the comments below.